How, alpha males, could it be that it's been 2018 since there's been an entire episode recorded and done about E.D.C, Everyday Carry? If you've listened, you'll know I'm big on Everyday Carry, and I talk about it quite a bit. But by God's grace, the podcast has been growing, and I don't know how many people go back and listen to episodes from 2018. So, here we are, E.D.C in 2023. Maybe some potassium iodide in case we get some tactical nuclear strikes from the motherland. Maybe a couple of silver rounds in case this economy collapses or the new digital currency does not work out. But seriously, today we are going to talk about E.D.C in 2023. Whether you've been listening since 2018 or just tuned in today, thank you. I am humbled that you give me some of your time. I really am. I do this primarily as a ministry. I don't apologize for that. Alpha Male Podcast, where we talk about being a man the right way with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. You don't have to be a Christian to listen, but it's more important than all the gadgets and the E.D.C stuff. With that, I'm going to put in a bio, and then we'll get into the main topic of Everyday Carry. So, who am I? Who is this person talking to you from across the internet? Why should you listen? First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Melito. Welcome to the podcast. Everyday Carry, alpha male style. Alright, number 1, a Bible. You should know that's where I'm going to start if you're any kind of long-time listener. And they do make very small pocket-sized Bibles. I used to carry one in my body armor sometimes, and I was, let's say, a full-time professional gunfighter. Just a little tactical tip, those small New Testament Psalms and Proverbs will sometimes fit in a compartment made for an M16 magazine pouch. But there is an easier way with this new technology we have to carry not just one Bible, but many, many versions of the Bible. And that's the Bible app. The Bible app is awesome. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't get any kickbacks from them. But I use their Bible app all the time, and I've been using it for I don't know how many years. It's a fantastic thing to be able to carry a Bible on you. Because let's be real, most of us have a smartphone on us. Shouldn't we then have a Bible? And one of the cool things about the Bible app, several of the translations you can just download, so whether you have service or not, in the wilderness or not, you can still have a Bible. Also, there's some audible versions of the Bible. So you can listen to it if you're driving, if you just haven't had time to get your Bible in today and you want to get some Bible time in. It's fantastic. There may be other ones, but I've used that one for so long that it's really hard to recommend anything else. That Bible app is awesome. Some other cool apps you might want if you're into E.D.C. make you a little bit more prepared. There are the U.S. Army Survival Guide that you can download. Also the SAS Survival Guide. And again, there may be other survival apps, but those are the two that are on my phone. Also, obviously, Spotify and or iTunes. Hopefully you're subscribed to this podcast, Gunfighter Life, and Simple Man Sermons on those apps. Good to have on your phone. You can mess around with the settings, get automatic downloads of the podcast, mine and other people's. That way, if you are off grid or the grid goes down or whatever, you can still listen. If you're somewhere without service, long drive, and you're in a long area without service, you can still listen to the podcasts, which is pretty cool. Okay, now, moving to the outside of the phone, many people probably have a phone case. Something that I like to do in the back of the phone case. Maybe you want to put a little bit of spare cash in there. How many times have you forgotten your wallet and you go up, but you have your phone? Might be a good idea to have a little bit of cash. Not much. I think mine has $20 in it. Just in case I get stuck out, I need to get gas, I'm hungry, whatever. Even with inflation today, $20 can probably get you a couple of gallons of gas and, a protein bar or whatever it is. Also, back there, I like to carry a piece of blue thread. Read Numbers 15 if you want to know more about that. Also, I carry a surgical scalpel or Havalon razor cutting blade. It's real thin, it slips back there. That way, in case I forget a knife or I want a sterile knife for doing something, I have another blade on me. And I don't think you'd ever even notice that it was there. And also, inside my phone case, I have written in Sharpie my phone number and email address. What if somebody finds my phone, they can't open it, it's dead or whatever? They can email me and say, hey, I found your phone. Also, another thing you may want to do is have saved in your favorites a picture of your photo ID or photo IDs. Now, you're supposed to have like a legit government ID on you, you get pulled over or whatever, but it's much better to have a picture of it than nothing. I also carry photocopies of that stuff in my car, but talking about E.D.C on your phone, just having a good color photo of your go-to ID, whatever that is, passport, driver's license, military ID, concealed carry, all of the above, and have them in your favorites. That way, if you get pulled over, you're not spending 10 minutes trying to scroll through it on your phone. Anyway, moving on from the phone for E.D.C. Should be no surprise. I think if you're a man, you should carry a knife. A knife is a great utility tool. It can be used for many things. It can be used for countless things. Food prep to hand-to-hand combat. Anything from removing a splinter to the use of deadly force. Now, my number one recommendation is going to be the same that it's been for a long time, a Buck 110 Slim. I will be honest, it's not my go-to E.D.C because I generally E.D.C a fixed blade, which we'll get to. But most people, I don't think, carry a fixed blade. I don't know what the number is, but I would say the vast majority of people that E.D.C a folding knife. And if I'm going to recommend a folding knife, I'm going to recommend the Buck 110 Slim. The old Buck 110s are great. They're heirloom quality, but they're a bit big and a bit bulky. The Buck 110 Slim, as its name implies, is slim, comes with a pocket clip, so it's oriented the right way in your pocket if you have to get to it quickly and use it. It also has a thumb stud, so you can open it one-handed. Pretty awesome. They have just the basic version 440 with a good heat treat, and they have nicer versions, the S30V, but the Buck 110 Slim, and again I specify the Slim, I think for E.D.C it's a better option. If for whatever reason you cannot have the blade length of the buck 110 in your jurisdiction, because knife laws can be a little funny, you might look at the buck 112. Anyway, it's a good option, and it's also a good option for me because I go and travel places where maybe I can legally even carry a gun, but they don't let you carry a fixed blade knife. Just, there are some strange knife laws. You are responsible for checking in knife laws in your jurisdiction. Anyway, the buck 110, the buck 112. If you want an alternate, you may look at the CRKT M16 or the Kershaw Leak if you're looking for a go-to E.D.C folder. And there are many others. But have a knife. Have a knife that's a good usable size. And a lot of people just focus on the blade, but the handle is really important too. It could have a fantastic blade, fantastic steel, but a handle that really is not ergonomic, that's really hard or maybe dangerous to use. On that note, if you're going to use a folder, unless it's illegal, I really encourage you to get a locking folding knife. Not like one of the old timers or something like that. Those are good knives and they're classic. But for everyday carry, if it's going to be your main knife and it's going to be a folder, I really recommend a locking knife. Now, what is my go-to E.D.C knife? My favorite go-to E.D.C knife? It's a bold statement, but I've said before, if I could only have one knife, at least of the knives that I own now, that I'm aware of, if I can only have one knife, period, for all the things, from butchering elk to everyday carry to a backup get-off-me tool in a tactical environment, whatever the case may be, if I could only have the one, it would be the White River Firecraft 3.5. It is my favorite go-to E.D.C knife. It is a great balance. I'm going to pull it out there for the fantastic audio. It is a fantastic balance of good usable size, a great handle length, a good grip, a good classic blade that would be, again, good for, boning out an elk or good for tactical application. It's S35VN, and I think there are some other versions of this, but what a phenomenal knife. I mean, really. The one that I have, there are different versions. There are longer and shorter ones, but I think the 3.5 for an all-around knife and for an E.D.C fixed blade, it's just about as ideal as you can get. The one thing I don't like is the handle has one finger groove. I'm not a big fan of finger grooves because if I'm using it in a tactical application, reverse grip, or other things, I don't like the finger groove. But other than that, it's about as close to perfect as I've ever seen in a knife. I've been E.D.C-ing it for, I believe, years now, so it's a phenomenal, phenomenal choice. As the name might suggest, Firecraft, it's made for making fire. Although I got it when I was leading men in a tactical team to stop active shooters. I got it for tactical applications because doing ground fighting and stuff and thinking through that and CQB, I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out and deploy one-handed if one hand's broken or been shot, a folding knife and deploy it quickly. A fixed blade knife is not only more robust and less things to go wrong, it's also a lot quicker to deploy. So I got it for tactical application, and I think I even took the ferro rod off for a while. But when I started upping the E.D.C game, I went back to the ferro rod. It's the Firecraft. It comes with a really good ferro rod. So there you go. When that's my E.D.C, I E.D.C a way to make fire. Now it's good to know how to make fire without that stuff and improvise fire, but if you can have a way on you, whether you get hot or cold or wet or whatever to start a fire, that's a great thing to have. And the sheath comes with the holster, I guess you would call it, for the ferrocerium rod as well. It's a good holster, but wait, there's more. I've kind of tricked it out. I did a whole episode called Trick My Knife. You may want to go back and give a listen. But you may be wondering, how do I E.D.C a fixed blade in my pocket? Well, it's called an ulti-clip. There's Ulti-Clip. There's some other knockoff brands. I don't know if this is I think this is actually one of the not Ulti-Clips. But Ulti-Clip is a good one. I have it on one of my other knives. It's basically a clip that you slide on the outside of your, put the knife on the inside of your pocket and put the clip on the outside, and it clips down, and it's really, really secure. So that's how I hold it in the pocket, and it stays oriented the right way. I kind of keep it so the handle runs against the seam of my pants, and it's very, very inconspicuous. And the way that I generally conceal carry a full-size firearm, I generally have an overshirt or a vest or just a plaid flannel shirt that I carry over it, so it covers both the gun and that. But it's got the Ulti-Clip on there. Also, next to the ferrocerium rod, there's a piece of fire cord. Now, fire cord is like a 550 cord, but it has a flammable wick inside of it. So I will have a little bit of tinder on me. Also, I forget if it's jute or manila cord I have wrapped around there that is also very good tinder. I imagine a lot of you young men are worried about your Tinder game as far as a dating app goes. I am so thankful and blessed by God that I am happily married and love my wife, and I don't have to deal with dating anymore. But I kind of took that for granted living in the desert Southwest for years and years. Then I did a large stint, as you might know, my wife and I live as neo-nomads, and did a large stint in the Pacific Northwest, and you can't just always count on readily available dry tinder. So I put those two things on there in addition to that. Also on there I have wrapped around the Ulti-Clip some braided line, braided fishing line, Spectra, really strong, really thin. It also has a fish hook on it, so I have a little bit of fishing capability there. I can also bend that out straight and maybe file the barb off real easy. The back part of that knife also has some grooves cut in it I could use as a file, and I could straighten that out, and I could use it as a needle and thread if I had to make stitches or, you know, sew up a piece of gear that was important, a strap that came off a pack, whatever it is. You know, I could sew something up pretty robust with that because that cord is super strong. That Spiderwire XL, I forget what brand it is, but that Spectra, they tout it as being stronger than steel. I've got some of that wrapped around there. Then on the bottom, I have some micro cord. Now, micro cord is like 550 cord, but much smaller. It's somewhere around 100-pound test. I have enough of that on there so that I could use it for cordage if I wanted to take it off. But also, I can unravel it. It's already set to be adjustable for a neck knife. I don't generally like carrying a neck knife, but if I were doing something like bathing in a river or a creek, where I didn't have my gun or something on me, which my wife and I have been known to do living off-grid, it is nice to have a knife on me to wear as a neck knife. So I could wear this as a neck knife also if I wanted to. On that cordage, I have tied a very small titanium container. I mean really small, but I believe it holds 10 water purification tablets. So, as we discussed, I have a way to make fire, I have a way to make clean water, as long as I can find a suitable container. In most places you can. Also on there, I have a very small, lightweight whistle. And that's just on the knife. You may think that that's a lot, but it's really, really not a lot. It slips into the pocket. Nobody walking around Walmart, you know, has any idea that all that stuff's in my pocket. And it really doesn't weigh very much. And it's a good fixed blade knife. A good solid fixed blade knife. Good for tactical applications, good for survival applications. I have a way to make fire, a way to purify water, even a little small fishing kit on there. Oh, and one more thing I almost forgot because it blends right in. I have a Ranger band on there. If you don't know, those are small, thick rubber bands that burn really well. So that is my main go-to, my favorite E.D.C knife. I will sometimes, however, carry the Tops Mini Tracker. The Tops Mini Tracker is a really, really cool knife. It is really unique. If you don't know what a Tops Tracker looks like, maybe go look one up. I have a bigger version, but that's quite a bit larger than I would like the E.D.C. The Tops Mini Tracker is even smaller than the knife that I just discussed. It is a good knife. It is I believe 1095 high carbon steel. Not a super steel like the other one, but man, does this thing get and stay sharp. And it's easy to sharpen. It's fantastic. It's a real nice thin blade profile. It is a good shape. This knife also gives a lot of other functionality. It has a decent, not just like a novel, but a decent saw on the back of it. Also, if you look at the blade profile, it's rather unique, and when I first got it, I thought I'll try it out. Maybe it's kind of gimmicky, but I find it very utilitarian and very useful, the blade shape and profile, for a lot of things. The handle is just a little small so that my pinky hangs off the back of it, in which I made a small lanyard loop so that I can still get a full grip. It's a very small fixed blade knife that's still big enough to be useful. Useful for defense, again, useful for survival applications, useful for all kinds of things. That Tops Mini Tracker. It's a fantastic knife. This one actually has the name brand Ulti-Clip on it. Also has some monofilament fishing line with a fish hook wrapped on there. Same thing. Ranger band. Similar what we talked about. Also, this has a smaller ferrocerium rod. You can get these like a toggle that you can use on, like, let's say a jacket or a backpack as like just a little toggle to put on where the zipper is. That's a great thing to do for survival. I have one of those on this knife, and it's wrapped around the same kind of concept with the micro cord so that I could wear it as a neck knife if I needed to. So I have a way to make fire. It's not as easy as with the Firecraft. Also have that same very small, lightweight titanium container that holds, I believe, 10 water purification tablets. There's a lot of functionality, and that one's even smaller than the Firecraft. Okay, so that one is a little bit smaller than my favorite go-to EDC. This next one is a little bit bigger. I generally don't EDC this one when I'm, let's say, on grid in an environment where I'm surrounded by buildings and stuff like that. But when I do stints off grid in the wilderness, living off grid, which I do from time to time, plan on doing that, God willing, fairly soon in Idaho. Anyway, this knife I carry it the same way. It still has the same kind of clip on it that clips inside the pocket, but it is an SE4. The SE 4-inch. It can be carried inside a pocket. It is a big, beefy survival knife. The one that I have is S35VN. If you care about the steel and a good, grippy micarta handle, I believe. It's a good knife. It's just a little bit bigger and heavier than I'm generally going to carry on a normal EDC. But on an off-grid EDC day, yeah, it's a fantastic knife. This one, the scabbard has a little bit more on it because it's a little bit bigger knife. I have a full-size ferrocerium rod. I have some of that fire cord. I have quite a bit more of the tinder, that jute or manila cordage that lights pretty easy. Also have a Tops whistle, which is a much better whistle, I think, than is on the White River Firecraft. Also on this, one of the very small kind of button compasses in the same container with water purification tablets. Also on there is a little small mini saw. And by mini saw, I mean it's like part of a hacksaw blade that's good for all kinds of things. And that's pretty much all wrapped around there. I've got two Ranger bands wrapped around it, one smaller one and one much larger one. Again, they burn really well and they burn for a long time. And again, when I was in the Pacific Northwest, I really thought it was wise to up that ability to not just get a spark going, but get a legitimate fire started in a wet environment. And as by God's grace, we hope to be going to Idaho and then Alaska, that's a pretty good thing. Also, on my off-grid EDC, one thing I'll just throw in my pocket is a Sawyer Mini. But wait, there's more. If I have a Sawyer Mini and there's a body of water, it's likely there might be fish in there. So I have wrapped around it just some monofilament with a couple of small straps of duct tape, some monofilament, and some fish hooks. Because it really doesn't take up any more space, there's a little recess in it anyway. I really like the Sawyer Minis. They weigh very little. In my experience, they tend to get less clogged and work longer than the Life Straw. I started out with Life Straws. They work okay like on a pack, but they're a little big for EDC. The Sawyer Minis I like better. They have a couple of advantages in that they're smaller. They, for me at least, tend to get clogged less, and you can screw on a lot of common plastic bottles. So you have a way to carry water in addition to purify water. And they're just smaller. They'll easily fit into a front pocket or a back pocket of most pants. Again, that's not an E.D.C for all the time, like if I'm just going to Walmart or the dog park. But if I'm living off-grid in the wilderness, yeah, absolutely. It's lighter and handier than carrying like a Nalgene bottle or a metal water bottle. Why would I carry that thing around if I'm in an environment with plenty of water when I can literally drink out of a pond or a stream or whatever and not have to carry that water around? Also, something I will generally carry no matter what other knife I'm carrying in my pocket is a Victorinox Classic. Victorinox Classic is an awesome little, I guess you could call it a multi-tool. It's very, very small. If you don't know what a Victorinox Classic is, it's that little tiny, tiny Swiss Army knife, and I mean tiny. It has a little blade on it, which I would not consider useful for a lot of big work, but it's kind of my sacrificial blade for opening an Amazon box or cutting something that may really dull my nicer knife, because if it's a knife I'm carrying as a backup tool for defense, I want to keep it sharp. Now I'll use it, but if it's something I know is really going to dull the knife and I can use the smaller one, I use it, and it's really easy to sharpen. So it's got that little blade on there. It also has one of those kind of in-between Phillips head and flathead screwdrivers. I use that thing a lot for a lot of things. It's really handy to have something to turn screws in your pocket other than trying to use a knife blade, which would be bad. It also has a very small pair of scissors. They're my least favorite thing on there, but I do use them. But they have a little small pair of scissors. They're good scissors for as small as they are. Also, it comes with a pair of tweezers. Now, those actually get used quite a bit for splinters, pulling out pieces of cactus. They get used quite a bit. And a toothpick, which I've kind of sharpened. I don't generally use it as a toothpick. I use it to poke holes and stuff. But that Victorinox Classic is a cool, small little piece of E.D.C kit. The little loop that comes on it, I have attached to that a mini Sharpie. I use a mini Sharpie all the time for writing on a lot of stuff, a lot of times myself. That mini Sharpie, absolutely a good part of E.D.C kit. I should mention those items, meaning my E.D.C usually fixed blade knife, that little Victorinox Classic with the mini Sharpie, and this next item, flashlight, gets stored in the weak side pocket for a couple of reasons. I carry a gun on my strong side, so I like to have a defensive option on my weak side, which for me is my left hand, and I can shoot with either hand. But what if that hand, my right hand, is broken, it's pinned behind my back, somebody's literally trying to break it, it's been shot, whatever it is, I like to be able to have a good option on the left side. I carry the knife there, and I train that way. And generally, whether it's a folder or a fixed blade, I carry it in the left side pocket, so it's in the same place. Continuity of training. Also, the other items I mentioned generally go in that pocket. This next item, I've pretty much settled on this as my E.D.C flashlight. It comes in very handy. It's very nice. It is the Streamlight Micro Stream. They're not overly expensive. This one is USB rechargeable. It's very small, very handy. It's got the little clip so I can clip it on my pocket. It also has a reverse clip so you could clip it on, let's say, the bill of a hat, a boonie hat, or a baseball cap if you are working at night. So it kind of can turn into a de facto headlamp. Really simple rear cap operation. Has a high and a low mode. It is plenty bright enough for what I would consider to be paired with a handgun for defensive use. It's also really good for more mundane stuff like trying to find keys at night or finding something that you dropped in the grass at night, or just checking the perimeter when you open the door at night to make sure there's no mountain lions or bears or bad guys out there. You just do a quick scan with it before you walk out in the middle of the night. It's a nice handy thing to have in your pocket. Again, that's the Streamlight Micro Stream, and I've pretty much settled on it. It's bright enough that it's all that I need, and it's so small and so handy. Again, it's USB rechargeable. And to give you an idea of the size, it doesn't take AA's, but it's about the size of 2 AA batteries. Like one stacked on the other one. It may even be smaller than that. And it's a super light, handy, rechargeable flashlight. Moving around on the left side for me, you can reverse this or carry your stuff however you want, but I will carry a spare magazine in a carrier on the belt for whatever gun that I am running. I like to carry a spare magazine. I kind of have 2 go-to pouches. One I don't even know the brand of. The other one is the Range Max. It's a small, lightweight, good belt pouch. Really any that are good that you like. I went through a few before I settled on these 2. I kind of vacillate between the 2. But a good mag pouch that carries the magazine with enough of it protruding so that I can grab it and reload quickly, because that's kind of the point. Also behind that, in another magazine pouch that I don't have a magazine in, I carry a tourniquet. I carry a rat tourniquet. Now I will absolutely concede that a cat is a better tourniquet. There's just a limit to how much stuff I'm going to E.D.C. The rat tourniquet is light. It's handy. It'll also work on small children or my dog. Again, if you're comparing tourniquet to tourniquet, I do believe that the cat is a better tourniquet. I have TCCC training. I'm familiar. I think the cat is better. I carry one of those in my vehicle. I carry one on my shooting kit. But I think they're just a little bit big for me personally to E.D.C. I carry a rat tourniquet and a mag pouch. It is a Blue Force Gear mag pouch. It's basically like an elastic magazine pouch that I fold up that rat tourniquet, so it's already prepped. If I have to grab it and pull it out, it's already prepped to go on a limb. And it's small, it's lightweight compared to like the spare mag. It doesn't weigh very much. It goes on my belt with the spare mag. And that way I have a tourniquet on me. Talking about the belt. I said these things are on a belt. The belt is important, and I have pretty much settled on a belt. And that is the 511 TDU belt. It is a phenomenal belt. It is a good belt that you could wear with a suit. Most of them, at least the ones that I have, are reversible. One side is black, the other side is another color. I basically have 2. So I can have a black belt if I'm wearing a dressier kind of outfit. It goes just fine. It doesn't scream tactical, but I could also wear it with tactical pants if I'm doing stuff on a range. So I have a green and black one and a tan or coyote and black one. I guess it's more coyote and black one. So if I'm wearing tan pants or green pants or kind of dress pants, I have an option. I don't own blue jeans. I don't wear blue jeans. I don't like blue jeans. But I guess if you did, you could just wear it with the black belt. It's good, it's stiff, it's lightweight. I really like it. And I think the belt is often overlooked in E.D.C. A good belt is important. But that 511 TDU, and they're not crazy expensive. And I could have much more expensive belts if I wanted them. But I really like that belt. It's fantastic. I even, out of one of my older belts, made my dog a collar. It's a great collar for my dog. Okay, so the moment you've probably been waiting for if you're a gun person. What's my E.D.C. firearm? Well, I really vacillate between 2 main firearms. The one that I have on now and the one that I would say is the best of my E.D.C. guns is a Sig Sauer P226. It's the Legion version, single action only. Meaning, unlike most SIGs where the first shot you have to pull and the hammer cocks back and goes forward, this is more like a 1911. It has a thumb safety and it's single action. You click the safety off and she's ready to rock and roll. And every shot is the same single action, and not just the same but superb and great and a wonderful trigger. I'm very blessed to have this gun. This gun in particular I got for a good deal because it came in 357 SIG. I bought it used. And I think just because it wasn't a popular caliber, it came with a 40 barrel and a 357 barrel. And I was able to buy a Barstow Precision 9mm barrel and come out on top. So I have all 3 caliber options for this. I almost always carry it in 9mm, although I did carry it for a while in 357 SIG, and I still could if I wanted to. I had it direct milled out, cut, turned into a convertible, if you will, for a Trijicon RMR. and the kind of Trijicon RMR that doesn't take batteries. They make the kind that run off radiation and ambient light, so I don't have to worry about batteries. It's a very robust optic. In fact, I was doing wind sprints, and this gun went flying out, and it landed on rocks so hard that I dented the barrel, and the optic was okay, even though it did hit on the optic as well. It's a very robust optic. I carry this gun in a Blade Tech holster. It's a really good holster. I really like the belt clip. It's easy to take on and off. It even locks. It is a good, solid holster. Little tactical tip. Inside that belt clip, I have a piece of duct tape on there with a earplug. And what that does is it kind of fits on the belt so that it squishes that earplug down and then stops it from sliding around so much on my belt. So that is my probably best E.D.C. firearm. I also should mention it has the co-witness iron sight, so even if something happens with the optic, I co-witness, and it has the iron sights that I can still see and use for reference. I really recommend that if you're going to run an optic, have the co-witness iron sights. The other one, I said I vacillate between two main ones most of the time. The other one is the M17. It's very similar to this as far as training goes. No, I'm not a SIG fanboy. I'm not in love with SIG. Just at the time, I think that SIG 226 was the best option. I bought the M17. I did a whole podcast on the M17 on Gunfighter Life. The gun that I hate to love. I kind of got it as a beater gun. I got it used. I got it for $400 and something. I had been training with an optic, and I started out training with an optic on a 22, which is what I would recommend. And I decided, yes, the optic really is the way to go. It's the way of the future. It is better for a lot of applications. It's not just a gimmick. I was against optics on handguns for a long time, probably longer than I should have been, to be fair. But I thought, I'll buy this M17. It's $400. I'll run it really hard, get used to running an optic. And honestly, I kind of wanted to try out the military's new handgun, the M17. And I ran it for a long time, and I really like that gun. And I still put it in the E.D.C. rotation. It's very similar. It's got the thumb safety, so although it's a striker fire, the trigger is not as good on the 226 as it is on the 226, and it doesn't seem to be as accurate, especially as far as the shooter and the gun together is accurate as a 226 single action only that I have. It's a good gun, and it's quite a bit lighter than the 226. The 226, if you don't know, is metal on metal, whereas the M17 has a polymer frame, so it's quite a bit lighter. And it's still very accurate, very shootable, and it's quite a bit lighter. So I'll vacillate between the two. That one also has an RMR mounted on it, same one, different model because that one's tan, because that gun is tan, or coyote, or whatever color they call it. It's a brownish color. But it also co-witnesses with iron sights, and it's got the Trijicon RMR that does not take batteries. I do think the 226 Legion is a better gun. I do think the M17 is a lighter, handier gun to carry. So again, I will carry both. I kind of vacillate between the two. Right now, today, when I was recording this, I took off the 226 to lay it on the table to talk about it. I should mention on that M17, I put a Wilson Combat grip and the factory flat face trigger. I didn't put a bunch of aftermarket trigger parts to make it lighter. I literally got the factory option flat trigger. I like flat triggers. I know that I like flat triggers. I know that from running 1911s, which I like. They're just generally a little bit too heavy for E.D.C. That SIG Legion also came with a flat trigger, and I put a flat trigger in that M17. So again, continuity of training, they're very similar. And I also put on there the Wilson Combat grip module on the M17. Anyway, that's the two main guns. Sometimes if I'm out running, doing wind sprints, things like that, I'll carry my ultralight E.D.C, which was its own episode. You can go back and look up the ultralight E.D.C episode. And if I'm going out reconnoitering, I have what's called the Scout Belt, which has a little bit more capability, that I'll just literally clip on the belt with my normal E.D.C, the E.D.C I've already talked about. I'll add that little small, it's literally like a small pouch about the size of both my fists together, that I can clip on my belt in addition to my E.D.C. There's also an episode, I may combine all three of those into like a mega episode. But in general, that's part of my E.D.C. And I mentioned I usually will wear an overshirt just a lot of times a 100% cotton plaid shirt. Easy enough. I also like the Bone Tactical Carry shirts. I forget the exact name. And there's no sponsors on the show. I don't get kickbacks from any of these companies. I've refused sponsors. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. So nobody's telling me to tell you this stuff is awesome. I'm recommending it because it's what I carry. The Bone Tactical shirts, they're really good lightweight shirts. They're good pretty much year round. You can wear them in really hot environments, and in fact, they make you cooler. They come in a long sleeve and a short sleeve. They come in a really cool pattern that is camo, but it doesn't scream camo. It's not like multicam or woodland or marpat. It's just kind of a subdued. Think of it as like a earth-toned tie-dye. So it blends in really well, but it doesn't say, hey, I'm wearing camo. It's a fantastic shirt. I really like those shirts. I drape that over and it covers everything up, and it's a great way to E.D.C this stuff, a full-size gun, a tourniquet, a backup magazine, fixed blade knife, and just walk around like normal. Lots of people wear an overshirt. So that's pretty much going to round out the E.D.C for 2023. Going back to the fixed blade knife concept, if you want to get into that, but you're not sure if you're going to like it, and you want maybe a good option that doesn't cost as much as those, because I started experimenting with E.D.C-ing a fixed blade with a knife I already had, which I didn't mention. But if I was going to recommend one that was a good quality, a good knife, and equally important, a good sheath that you could put an ulti-clip on to carry in your pocket that way, the K-Bar forged wrench knife. It looks like I don't own one of these to be fair, but K-Bar is a good company. It's forged from one solid piece of metal, so I can't see much that would go wrong with it. That's one of the great things about a fixed blade knife. It's got a good, simple, but seemingly ergonomic handle. It's got a good blade profile, and it's got a good thin sheath with retention. So that K-Bar forged wrench knife, and again, they're not super expensive. And if you decide you don't want to E.D.C a fixed blade knife, I'm sure it will be great in your bailout bag or your bug out bag or whatever the case is. Your tactical tip of the day: if you're E.D.C-ing, if you're concealed carrying the handgun, your firm foundation should be a moral and ethical understanding of when you can use deadly force, and that is based on the Word of God, on the Bible. Remember, we started with the Bible. You should know when it's lawful and unlawful to use force and to use deadly force. That's important. That is a firm foundation. In addition to that, your fundamentals of marksmanship are important. But I'm going to give you some drills for the tactical tip that is pertinent to E.D.C. A classic drill, the Mozambique drill. Draw, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. Classic defensive drill. I think if you're going to conceal carry, you owe it to those around you to be well trained and well regulated militia. Not regulated as in government intervention, regulated as in well disciplined in your training. Mozambique drill. Draw, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. You can go, 3, 5, 7, work it out 15, 25 yards, whatever you want to do. But the Mozambique drill, get some practical training. Not like you took it to the range and shot it once at a silhouette target with no time limit. Remember, we talked about that smartphone in the beginning. You can download a shot timer. If you get serious, I encourage you to buy a shot timer, because eventually you'll probably drop it and break your phone. You would have been better off just buying a shot timer. But in the beginning, you can start out with a shot timer app that you can download. So that's another tactical tip. But that Mozambique drill, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. I don't know what your time limit should be for you, but a lot of statistics I've seen indicate that most defensive gun uses started and finished in less than 3 seconds. So use that as a benchmark for your Mozambique drill. Also a good drill, just drawing while you're backing up and doing consecutive rounds on target. Stepping backwards 2, stepping backwards 3, 4, 5, 6. Why the stepping backwards? You say, I'm never going to retreat. What if somebody's running at you with a knife and you got to get your gun out? That's going to give you time. Somebody's running at you with a 2x4. I've been there. Backing up is probably a good idea while you're getting your gun out. Making space, making time. I was a Marine. I'm all about running towards gunfire. In fact, when I hear gunfire, I often have to fight that urge to run towards it and assess and say, hey, what's going on? Should I run to it or not? Because Marines are taught to run towards gunfire. But in the situation that you might run into in defensive gun use, somebody's coming at you with a knife, somebody's coming at you with a 2x4 or a tire iron. That controlled move backwards while getting consecutive hits on target. And then some additional drills. It's likely good if somebody is running at you or shooting at you to move. You can start off simple. After you've got your draw down, draw one shot, draw a Mozambique drill, try as you're drawing, stepping to the right. And notice I said as you're drawing. It's not step to the right, draw, or draw, step to the right. Right? That's adding time. Be efficient, be fast, be smooth, be deadly. Do it at the same time. While you're stepping, draw. To the right, to the left. Then you can try turning to the right, turning to the left. So you're faced 90 degrees. Turning, drawing, keeping your gun pointed in a safe direction, and getting quick hits on target. Because what if the threat pops up somewhere else? And finally, turning around, a 180. For this, turn and draw, but make sure the muzzle stays pointed in a safe direction. Usually, if you're doing it correctly, by the time you are out of the holster, your body's already oriented towards the threat. But you should practice all those things, not just standing static. I learned from a very good training facility. One of the sayings they used to say, what would you like the bad guy to do? What would you like the person you're gunfighting to do? And I don't remember their exact words, but what would you like that person to do? What would make it easy for you to shoot them? And they would say, well, don't do that thing. Right? Don't do that thing. And I got that from PFC, to give credit where credit is due. Progressive Force Concept. Progressive Force Concepts. Very good training and instruction. And they would say, don't do that thing. Right? And that makes sense. What's easier to hit, a static target or a moving target? So why would you be a stationary target? If you're in a deadly force situation and rounds or blades are inbound, move. So you should practice that, right? So the first time you do it is not in a deadly encounter. Practice moving and shooting. Moving while shooting. But that's a good, simple set of drills you can do. While moving to the right, draw. While moving to the left, draw. While facing 90 degrees one way or the other, draw. Turning around. You hear gunfire behind you. Basic, simple, practical drills. The man that reads his Bible, prays often, practices the fundamentals and those simple drills often, is likely going to be more effective, and I'd rather have him at my side than the guy with the brand new SIG 365 with the brand new optic that he has taken to the range and shot once static at an indoor range with a flat target. Be effective. Be efficient. Be acquainted with violence. Use it when it's appropriate. Be in control of it. With that, the tactical verse of the day. Exodus 15, the Lord is a man of war. The Lord is a man of war. You are made in his image. Also from Ecclesiastes. There is a time for peace and a time for war. You know, Solomon says in that book, for everything there is a season. There's a time for peace and a time for war. As we started, know when it's lawful to use force and use deadly force. Have a firm foundation. That foundation, the rock, is God, is Jesus Christ. If you build your life on anything else, it's shifting sand. Doesn't end well for whatever's built on top of it. Have a firm foundation. Be men of God. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.